In the bustling alleys near the temple grounds, two local thugs, known among the rabble as Street Rat Jang and Green Snake Lee, conspired in the stench of mischief. They were the self-declared leaders of a gang of 20 ruffians, men of no coin and less character. That morning, as the monk Lu Jishen wandered near the manure pit, he spotted the gang standing still, oddly still, like statues ringed around a foul altar. "We've come to offer congratulations, Master Monk," one of them called out in unison, all too cheerfully. Jishen narrowed his eyes. These were not visitors, they were schemers. Still, he beckoned with practiced hospitality. "If you're neighbors and kin to these streets, come inside. Let's talk like men." Instead of stepping forward, Zhang and Li dropped to their knees in theatrical reverence, refusing to rise, hoping the monk would approach and help them up so they could strike. But Jishen was no fool. "These dogs are up to something," he muttered. "I'll show them the monk they dare to test." With thunder in his stride, Jishen marched toward them. "We only wish to greet our revered master," they cooed again. One lunged for his left leg, the other for the right. Jishen didn't wait. With a sudden kick, he sent Green Snake Lee flying into the manure pit. Jang tried to run but caught the second boot and followed his friend into the bubbling stench. The rest of the gang froze. "One of you moves," roared Jishen, "and I swear on Buddha's bowl, I'll plant you face down in that pit too." No one dared breathe. From the pit, the muffled voices of Zhang and Li emerged, pleading. The two floated neck-deep in filth, hair slicked with sewage and crawling with maggots. "Forgive us, master." Jishen laughed. "Pull those turds out of the hole," he commanded, "and I may forgive the rest of you." A few brave souls helped retrieve their disgraced leaders. The smell was unbearable. Even the flies seemed reluctant. "Go wash in the vegetable pond," Jishen barked. "Then I'll speak to you without retching." After much scrubbing and some borrowed tunics, the gang was seated inside the shrine hall, now transformed into Jishen's humble home. He sat at the center like a warlord holding court. "Who are you, really?" he growled. "Don't lie to me." Zhang and Li dropped to their knees once more, this time sincerely. "We're gamblers, outcasts," they confessed. "We live by dice and luck. This garden was our territory. The monks before tried to drive us out, but you're different. We didn't know who you were, but now—" Jishen interrupted. "I'm from Yan'an, once a command officer under the great Marshal Zhongyi, killed too many men, took the robe to atone. Now here I am." He gestured at the 20 or so men around him. "You lot? Ha! I'd take 1,000 of your kind in battle and not break a sweat." The outlaws cheered. From that day forward, they pledged loyalty. They brought offerings, pork, wine, coin. They shared drinks, stories, and laughter beneath the shade of the green willow trees. One afternoon, deep in his cups, Jishen chuckled as a black crow shrieked from above. "It's bad luck," whispered a farmer. "Nonsense!" Jishen bellowed. "Superstitious rot." "There's a nest," someone offered, "on the corner of the vegetable wall, been shrieking all week." "Then we burn it down," laughed another. "No need," said Jishen. "I'll handle it." Amid the jeers and goading, he walked over to the willow tree. With a playful grunt, he grabbed its trunk, bent low, and with a roar ripped the young tree from the earth, roots and all. Gasps, cheers, cries of "true immortal" erupted. Only a monster or a saint had strength like that. Zhishin, eyes half glazed with wine, grinned. "Tomorrow I'll show you weapons. This was only warm-up." The next morning dawned hot and heavy. The garden's green leaves drooped in the sun, and the men wiped sweat from their brows as they waited in a circle beneath the locust tree. A mat had been laid, and great bowls of meat and jugs of wine shimmered in the light. Liangshan arrived, dressed simply, his thick arms glistening. With him he carried something wrapped in red silk. "Today," he announced, "you feast not only with a monk, but a soldier." He unwrapped the silk. Gasps. A staff of blackened iron, heavy as grief, long as a coffin, with both ends bound in bands of steel. It shimmered with menace. The crowd drew back. Zhishin twirled it once. The iron sang. He moved like a storm, wide sweeps, sudden jabs, one-foot stances, spinning through the air with a grace that belied his bulk. The weapon bent the air with every swing. No wasted motion, no faltering breath, not a single step out of place. When he stopped, not a single soul spoke. Then, cheering, roaring, even the birds in the rafters fled. But one man clapped more slowly, with precision. "Marvelous," said the stranger. The monk turned. Standing by a broken piece of wall was a man in silk robes, lean and sharp like a drawn bowstring. His brows were thick, his beard trimmed. He held a folded fan and wore the uniform of a military trainer. "Your form is extraordinary, not common for a monk." Zhishin tilted his head. "And you are?" "Liangshan," the man replied, stepping forward. "Chief instructor of the 800,000 Imperial Guards. I've never seen the staff wielded so divinely." Zhishin laughed. "Then you have poor friends." "No longer," Liangshan replied, and bowed low. "From this day forward, let us be brothers." So it was. The monk and the warrior, one born of battle, the other reborn through it, toasted beneath the tree as the gang of outlaws hailed them both. But fate was stirring. That very evening, as the two shared wine, a servant girl came running, face pale, eyes wild. "Master! Master Lin!" she cried. "Mistress is in trouble. At the temple, some man is harassing her." Liangshan stood so quickly, his bench toppled. "Where?" "The Yue temple. She went to give thanks. A man stopped her on the stairs. He won't let her leave." Without another word, Liangshan grabbed his sword and dashed into the alley. Zhishin already behind him, iron staff in hand. They reached the temple in minutes. On the terrace stood a group of idle young men, mocking and jeering. One, dressed in delicate silks far too fine for the gutter, stood near a trembling woman, Liangshan's wife. She clutched her robe to her chest, face flushed with fury and shame. "Come up, my lady," the man sneered. "A private chat. No harm in that." Liangshan stormed up the stairs, eyes blazing. The man turned and froze. "You?" Liangshan growled. "What punishment fits the crime of harassing a soldier's wife?" The man paled. Recognition bloomed too late. It was Gao Yanei, the adopted son of Grand Marshal Gao Q, known throughout the capital as the Silken Tyrant. He had never been denied anything until now. Lin Chong raised his fist, but stopped short. This man was the marshal's godson, too powerful, too protected. Gao Yanei saw the hesitation. "This is no business of yours, Lin Chong." "She is my wife," Lin Chong said quietly, "and you are filth." Behind him, Zhishen tightened his grip on the iron staff. "Want me to teach this peacock a lesson?" he asked, half drunk. "No," said Lin Chong. "For now, we walk away." But rage had seeded something darker in Gao Yanei's heart. Rejected, humiliated, he would not forget. And thus began the trap. The days that followed were uneasy. Lin Chong tried to forget, to drink and laugh with Lu Jishen beneath the shade of trees, to practice forms in quiet courtyards, to believe that perhaps the storm had passed, but it had not. Somewhere in the depths of the Grand Marshal's residence, Gao Yanei sat pale and sickly. He could not eat. He could not sleep. The memory of her face haunted him, and the cold fury in Lin Chong's eyes. "I will waste away," he groaned, "unless she is mine." Two men listened, slithering shadows in rich robes. Fu An, a wily flatterer, and Lu Qian, the marshal's lackey, both loyal to Gao Yanei, both willing to betray their own mothers for favor. "There is a way," said Lu Qian, fingers steepled, "but it involves removing a certain obstacle." The marshal's steward was summoned, then Gao Q himself. The plot was whispered over silk screens and lacquered tea trays. It was clean, elegant, impossible to prove. They would bait the tiger into a trap and then cry wolf. 2 days later, Lin Chong was drinking tea in his courtyard when two unfamiliar messengers arrived. "Sir," one said with a bow, "the Grand Marshal requests you to bring your sword to his estate. He wishes to see your blade. He's heard you've purchased something fine." Lin Chong's brows twitched. How had the Marshal heard? He had shown the blade to no one except Zhishen. Still, refusing would be disrespectful. He nodded, sheathed his sword, and followed. They walked in silence through the winding alleys, past fragrant gardens and glittering lanterns, into the heart of power. The marshal's estate loomed ahead, gates like jaws. "In here," one of the men said, guiding him through inner halls. No attendants, no bustle, just the quiet hush of polished floors and heavy curtains. They brought him to a doorway. "Wait here," they said, and disappeared inside. Lin Chong stood alone in a corridor of green latticed wood, the air thick with silence. He looked up. Over the door, 4 painted characters stared down at him like the eyes of a god. White Tiger Hall, Bai Hu Je Tang. His blood ran cold. This was no parlor, no study. This was where military conspirators were judged, where the empire whispered justice into executioners' ears. He turned to leave, but too late. Footsteps, fast and firm. Gao Q himself swept into the chamber, his long beard trailing, face thundercloud dark. "Lin Chong," he snapped, "how dare you enter the White Tiger Hall bearing a weapon? Are you plotting treason, planning to assassinate your superior? Lin Chong's heart sank. My lord, I was summoned. 2 of your men. There were no such men, Gao Q barked. Guards, arrest this traitor! From hidden doors, a dozen armored soldiers poured into the room. Lin Chong raised his blade by reflex, but dropped it the next moment. To resist was to die. Steel clanged, hands grabbed. His arms were twisted behind him, rope biting into skin. This is madness, Lin Chong cried. I have done nothing. But Gao Q's eyes gleamed with triumph. Take him, the marshal said coldly. Let the courts decide whether he lives or dies. Thus fell Lin Chong, once a respected teacher of the imperial guards, now a prisoner accused of treason, betrayed not by enemies, but by power itself. And far away in a quiet alley, Gao Yane smiled and whispered to the wind, Now she will be mine.